So as I promised, I'm going to tell you the fun story about the time I met Paul McCartney and his wife, Linda. This was when they were on tour in the early 90s. I was working at a music store, actually. I was a manager of a store. A friend of mine called me one day while I was at work, and he said, John, a friend of mine works down at Carillon Point, which was a very ritzy hotel that was on Lake Washington in an area called Kirkland. My friend says, John, a friend of mine works down there in the kitchen, and she just saw Paul and Linda get into a boat, and they left off a dock, and there was nobody there. There was no one watching them. No one saw them. You should go down there. So I went to my boss, and I said, I have a chance to meet Paul McCartney. And he didn't even say a word. He said, go. So I got in my car. An amazing thing is that just sheerly by the grace of God, I had a laser disc in my car of the Rock Show movie, which was a film that was made of Paul McCartney's tour of the United States. The only reason I had it in my car is because it was defective and I was taking it back to Tower Records. So it was just sitting in the back of my car, but I had something to have him sign in the event that I met him. So I sped down to this hotel, and there were hundreds of people that were milling around in the parking lot, in the lobby of the hotel, and kind of in the general area. I walked past all those people around to the back of the hotel, and I look out there, there's nobody back there. I just sat there and I thought, well, I guess I'll just sit here. I sat there, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, and I was basically about to give up. It had been pretty close to an hour, and I see this boat pull up way down the dock. This is not a short dock. This is a long dock that goes out. Boat pulls up. I see these figures get off. It was a small group of people. It was a small boat. It wasn't a yacht. It was like a little, I don't know what you would call it, but certainly not a large yacht or a large boat even. They get off, start walking down. So I get up and I just start walking down the dock towards these people. And as I get closer, I realize that it's Paul and Linda, and they are surrounded by two huge bodyguards, these monstrous guys, one on the left, one on the right, and they're walking down towards me on a dock, which is a thin passageway. It's just me heading one way and them heading towards me. And one of the most amazing things about it is that, I've always dreamed of meeting McCartney or Elton John, Bowie, the people that I admire. But I had prepared myself to not be a dork when I met him, to not be a typical fan. But more than anything, I just wanted to greet them as people and just kind of tell Paul how much I appreciate what he's done and not do it in a dorky way. So as I'm walking towards them, as soon as I'm close enough to make out the features of Paul's face, and I started perceiving in real space his size, how tall he was, and his features, I had this response that feels the way that you feel when you go over a bump in a car too fast, or maybe when you're on a roller coaster where you do a flip, you feel your insides kind of roll. It was just the response I had, and it surprised me. It shocked me. And so I'm approaching them and I'm looking at this guy and I'm going, man, I've looked at hundreds, if not thousands of pictures of this guy since I was 5 years old. I've watched hundreds, if not thousands of hours of footage of him in all kinds of settings. And I think that that's why it was so strange. When you've seen someone in pictures and film, and then you're suddenly seeing them in real life, in real space, it's a very strange, surreal experience. It certainly was for me. So anyway, I walked up to them. And I said, hi, guys. How are you doing? How did you enjoy Lake Washington? And Paul said, oh, it's beautiful. We've been here before. Linda was the first one that kind of engaged me. She said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing great. I said, I slept outside to get tickets for your concert. I know. And I said, I know that makes me sound like a freak. I said, but the Kingdom is such an awful venue for music, and I wanted to be someplace where I could really, hear the music and enjoy it. And she said, that's really cool. She said, what kind of seats did you get? I said, I basically have the best seats in the house. I'm maybe 3 rows back from the very front. This was by the time that there was no more festival seating. Everyone was assigned seats. So I was about 3 rows back, literally right in the center. So I really couldn't have had better seats. And she said, I guess it pays to sleep outside on the cement. I said, yeah, it does. She said, well, we look forward to seeing you there. And then I had this Laserdisc cover. Sincerely, it's like miraculous that I had that thing in my car. And I had a marker. I must have grabbed a marker from work. That's what I did. So anyway, I handed it to Paul, and he's looking at it with confusion because this was a laser disc, and a laser disc was only for weirdos like me, like videophile, really fanatical home theater videophile type people. And Paul had never seen this artwork. So his first thought was that it was an album because it's the exact same size and shape as an album. He said, what is this, a bootleg?
Well, when I met you at the station, you were standing with a bootleg in your hand. I drove you back to my little place.
People used to buy bootlegs on vinyl. So he's seeing this strange artwork and he thought it was a bootleg. I said, no. It's a laser disc. I said, it's of the rock show film from the 76 tour. And he goes, oh, it's one of those laser things. That's what he said. So obviously Paul didn't own a laser disc player. They were kind of walking down the dock and I was sort of walking backwards. The bodyguards were looking at me with intimidation at the beginning, but as soon as I started engaging them, they were kind of loosened up a little bit, but they were watching me like hawks. So I'm kind of just, walking back as we're having this conversation. Then I start hearing this rumble happen behind me. It's the sound of hundreds. There must have been maybe 200 people, if not more. Somebody had heard that this was happening and that McCartney was on this dock. And I knew what it was as I heard it behind me. I didn't turn around to even look. So, I hear the rustle of people and people are starting to scream and like, Paul. And so eventually they actually hit the dock and start coming down the dock, and the dock is like rumbling under my feet. And at that point, the bodyguards went into, serious mode, and it kind of ended my engagement with them. They knew what they were going to face in a matter of seconds. So, but the really interesting thing is that the first people to approach them behind me were some girls. Some attractive girls. And Paul said, hi, girls. And when he said that, it made a shudder run through me. And I'll explain to you why. There is a very famous documentary of the Beatles' first tour of the United States. There's a scene of all the Beatles in the limousine with, girls in New York City pounding on the windows and trying to get in. And Paul says, hi, girls.
Hi, girls.
And I had watched that scene hundreds of times. I'm a Beatles fanatic. What can I say? But he said that in the movie. And then in the moment when I'm with them, as these girls approached, he said, hi, girls. It was exactly the same. It was like someone had taken the snippet and sampled it. I got goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps right now. It was really, really strange. Once the crowd came in, I kind of backed out and because I knew that they were going to be, dealing with what they dealt with probably every day of their lives. Linda was a very lovely person, very engaging and warm and really natural. Instantly made me just feel like I was having a conversation with my friend. She was a really special person. I had not thought much of her before then, to be honest with you. I didn't dislike her, but I just never thought much about her. I was really impressed with her. Paul was Paul. He's dealt with being, if not the most famous, certainly one of the most famous people on the face of the earth since 1964. That's got to be a wearing experience, no doubt. And so, but just to be able to interact with him and to get the autograph that I got, and just to tell him that I did tell him, I said, I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, and I know you've heard this a million times, but man, I love what you do. Thank you.
Did I ever take you in my arms look you in the eye, tell you that I do. Did I ever open up my heart and let you look inside? If I never did it, I was only waiting for a better moment that didn't come. There never could be a better moment than this one. This one is lighting.